Don't forget to subscribe to Basement Tales. Just go on Apple, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts and hit that subscribe button. We release a podcast every Thursday. That way you'll be sure not to miss an episode. Welcome to Basement Tales with Sam Jackman, Charlie Einsman, Ed Grass, and Sandra Delancey. We have fun telling crazy but true stories about turning the worst possible property disasters into bags of money. Along the way, we'll pass along some important lessons to help you make cash on real estate. Sam and Charlie walked away from cubicle hell 25 years ago. Starting with no property, they created their own Clear Sky group of companies, sold hundreds of houses, bought dozens of rentals, and made millions in hard money loans. I'm Ed, a big firm litigator until muscular dystrophy made me find a hobby other than suing people. I miss it. Sandra's the normal person here with a real job plus some rentals. Her decades of friendship with the group, from office flunkies to property gurus, might help keep us all humble and focused on learning something. I wouldn't count on it. That's impressive. Well, we have a lot to do, man. I have some big questions. I think things have happened. You know, we've had a couple weeks off here, so we should have some fun stuff to talk about.
We do. We even had people write in things that they want to bring up later. So,
wow, good.
Yeah.
Excellent. You want to start us off then, Sam? You want to,
No. Let's answer some of your questions. My stuff is not as structured. I think we'll need more time to bring it on.
Well, there's two things I'm curious about. I don't know. I'm starting to hear some people a little panicked about interest rates going up and should they rush and buy a house now? And that sort of ties in with millennials. You know, my son, I guess, is a millennial, and my oldest son, and he could, fairly soon be in the market. Should he be rushing out to try to get something as a retail buyer? And what should he get? And I have a couple ideas about that because, say, what's a good starter if he's a financially minded kid? You want to live there for a while, but then maybe turn it into a rental. So
that's a perfect fit with the one I got. As a millennial, I have friends on social media in that generation who keep posting me this stupid meme about waiting for the market to crash so they can finally afford to buy a house. And she goes on to say, obviously the market crashing isn't what they should be hoping for, but they're misinformed. So
what's the answer?
We're not
to
really
that?
taught about housing. Definitely not taught what happened in the last crash. So that's the same. That's a reflection of the same question you're asking it.
Yeah, I think it is. Like, if you're in the market now, what do you run out and do? And it does tie into our investor class, because if you're going to live there or not live there, what would be good to then use as a rental down the line? And how do you figure out what to do? And I keep seeing that interest rates are up and have hit an all-time high in like whatever period of time. So what do you do, Sam? You're knowledgeable, or well, actually, if we want knowledge, we should ask Charlie.
Charlie, what's your advice for the millennials?
Well, I've got two millennials, and they're both striking out.
And they're both what?
Striking out. About 4 or 5 years ago, I tried to get Curtis to buy a house in North Arlington, a townhouse or a single family, and told him to learn how to be a house hacker. And so for you out there who don't know what a house hacker is, that's where you buy, let's say, a 3 or 4 bedroom house. You as the owner live in one of the bedrooms, and you rent out the other bedrooms to your friends. And you collect rent from your friends while you guys are all living there, hence the term house hacking. And so, of course, to no avail, he decided not to do that. So if I were a millennial, what I would do is like Ed said, I would buy a townhouse and make sure you lock in that low interest rate, and then buy it with the thought of that you might end up renting it out later. So if you get into a 30-year interest rate, that's really, really low. Plan for the long term, that you're going to keep it for the long term. And if you end up getting married, which the millennials don't seem to be any rush to get married and have kids, then you can go ahead and rent out.
It depends on the millennials, Charlie.
Yeah, I know. Well, then you can go ahead and rent out your house and move somewhere else, or you can continue to house hack your house until you're 40 years old, which either way.
So anyhow, I think it's the same view as a market, as a stock market. You're buying into value. and you're just buying it to hold it. You're not going to worry with it over a short-term time horizon. So if the prices are up 30% right now over what they think is a value point, as long as they get a really low interest rate and can cash flow within an affordable, reasonable range, just do that and rent that thing out and rent it while you're in it to your friends, and then rent it to other people once you move out of it and move out of the area, and don't even worry about it. For the Washington, D.C. area, it'll be a sustained value. You'll have depreciation that you can take off. It's a good investment. I think that's a great bit of advice. And I think that's good in pretty much any market, down or up. If you're just buying a single unit to start with, just start there. You're not having to worry about having 50 units and what you're going to do with them and all this other stuff. Just get one, get your foot in the door, especially with these low rates. And it's just no reason not to.
Yeah, but whether the rates go up or the houses go up, I mean, just think about it this way. If you buy a townhouse and it's a $400,000 townhouse in this DC metro areas where we're talking about, and you get a loan at 4%, I didn't say 3.25 or 3.5 or less, which they're going for now. If you get a loan for $400,000 at 4%, provided you have good credit and decent income, the payment on that guy is only $1,900 a month.
There you go.
So if you bought a nice townhouse in even Fairfax County for $450, and your payment's that small, well, your rent is going to be at least $2,200, $2,400, $2,500. So if you expand your family out in 3 or 4 years, you're certainly going to be able to rent it for your mortgage and make maybe a couple $100 a month. Now, I'm just talking principal and interest. I'm not talking taxes and insurance.
Right.
So, but money is so cheap right now, especially on owner-occupied houses. Even though the prices are still going to probably go up, it's still probably a good time to buy because the payment's going to be low. And even if you fixed in that payment for 30 years, why the hell do you care if the prices fluctuate? You're going to have that thing paid off.
So let me speak to that for 1 second, and that's to say that you're really buying two things when you buy your house, especially when you're entering the housing market. You're buying the financing and you're buying the house. But the people who are writing emails like the one I've received that suggest they want to wait for the crash could be in conjunction with a really high interest rate loan, in which case the offset's not going to be great. It's not going to be a good scenario for you. And I think that right now, that's the way to look at it. It's still entering the housing market with a low interest rate. And that's what you're buying. You're buying into the low rate with a low down payment because it's wonderful. And then at a later time, you'll evaluate the value that's been there, that's been created or not, say 10 years from now. Now, that's a shocking and horrible thing. If you're 28 years old and you're talking about a 10-year time horizon, that's like a third of your life.
What? How long are you going to live? But what?
Maybe just till tonight.
But think about it. If you took the same scenario that Sam just described, and we are looking at even $400,000, the same proverbial $400,000 loan, and if you do 15-year money, that PI payment's only $2,800 a month. And oh, by the way, if you're currently now 31 years old or 30 years old, you're going to have a house that you own outright at 45.
Exactly. And if you get the 30-year money and you make the 15-year payment, then you have flexibility. If you come into a time of cash shortage, then you can just go back to your 30-year payment. But you can, if you're affording the 15-year payment on the 30-year term, that's the best way. You get the best flexibility out of your own. You're just paying a marginal amount more for that 30-year money.
They're talking like people with money, though. I mean, a millennial. My millennial. Well, I don't have a millennial yet. She's they're more of Zoomers, but they're not going to be interested in a $200, possibly $200 a month, and that's a real impossible possible. Given my tenants and my experience, there's always going to be something that goes wrong, and like you said, that's just the principal and interest. That's not the taxes. That's not the insurance. That's not the other stuff. So you're really not going to make any money off of that. But I like that idea, Charlie, of what did you say? The live in one room and rent out the others.
That's what I want to talk about more. I totally
like that
agree.
idea. I mean, that's great. Like, how old can you be to do that? Like, can I do that now? I have some
idea. You can do that. Matter of fact, you can rent out your bedroom that you're in.
Well, not my bedroom. I'm using it, but I have some other bedrooms here. I think that's a great idea.
Slide someone in between you and Derek. You're good to go.
Oh man, he might not like that. but
We're going
I'm
off the
okay.
rails now. There's going to be
But
problems by the end of this
hey,
call.
depends on how much they're paying. But yeah, that's a great idea. I think I think my Zoomer would be interested, or a millennial would be interested in renting out some rooms. I mean, that sounds like an excellent idea
Well,
because you can
that's why
get quite a bit on a room.
I want to ask some more about that in two ways. One, about what sort of money you can make and what sort of property to do for that, and how you can do without a lot of help. Like, for example, my son's got a decent salary. He could probably pay that kind of mortgage pretty well to get the down payment, or 100% loan. That's a little bit of a question, but maybe with a guarantee or something for me. But it always makes me think of Mitt Romney's comment when he said during his election, he said, well, if you need money to start a business, just ask your parents for a loan, and not everybody has that. So what my son has been doing, which is smart, is he's living at home partly because of COVID, right? And he's saving up all that cash to where he might be able to do a down payment. But so that's one way to do it. I guess A, borrow from a rich relative for your down payment, or B, live in your parents' house and so you don't have rent. But then, okay, let's say he's ready to do this. I was thinking, I thought, oh, I'm smart. He should look to get a condo maybe to start. But don't get a one bedroom because, you can't really resell it or rent it well. Get a 2 bedroom. But now I'm hearing what Charlie's saying about like a 3 or 4 bedroom townhouse would be more of a stretch, but it's a lot more fully rentable and partly rentable. What's the market like for house hacking? Like what, if you, I mean, you may not have looked at it recently, but how much can I get a person I don't know? Now, my son has a friend where he would go, where he could be reliable to pay rent, but what kind of money do you get for that kind of house hacking? Do you have any sense?
$900 a room
in our area. It's $600 to $1,100.
Wow.
And it's based on the size of the bedroom, which bedroom it is. So, for example, the master bedroom is going to rent out for much more than a secondary or tertiary bedroom. And then if you have a 3-level townhouse, then you can you can put the basement in play. And so if you move somebody into the basement, then obviously that rent is going to be a little bit lower. But if the basement has a full bath, then you can charge a lot more. So it all just depends on the layout of the house. Now, I'm not totally for condos, and the reason is because you've got 2 problems with condos. The first one is you've got this condo association fee, so you've got to be really careful on what that fee is, right? Because some of them can be $500-600, so that eats into your cash flow. And the next thing with condos is that the age of the condo is very important too, because if the condo association doesn't have enough money in their reserves, then they can levy a special assessment at any time, and that will really put you behind the 8 ball. So we would much rather go towards townhouses or bigger, right? Townhouses.
Also, condos become functionally obsolete as soon as someone builds a new one, right? No one wants the old one, basically. So if you want a condo, you want to have a newer condo. You don't want to deal with old styles and spaces. But with homes, there's less transition between those. People can keep them updated through townhouse, a townhouse or house improving it.
And condos,
laws and regulations about doing that, though, renting out rooms. I mean, you need to know what your,
And condos usually have less bedrooms. 2 max.
They do.
Definitely less bedrooms. But what do you need to know about whether you can rent out rooms in your house or not?
Oh, yeah, there are limits in the condos technically, or maybe nobody cares. They just do whatever.
Even in your house, I think in DC, it was almost illegal to do that until recently, rent out rooms in your house.
Yeah,
they had to be.
So I suppose you have to check your jurisdiction pretty closely.
Absolutely.
Probably should talk to a lawyer. Oh, wait a second. I'm a lawyer. I don't even know the answer to that question. But yeah, that's a great point. I do know in DC, whether it's legal or not, if you rent out a bedroom, if you rent out your couch, you pretty much have tenant rights where you can't just kick somebody out. I don't know what Virginia's like if you literally just let a friend, but I think in DC, isn't it, guys? If you say, hey, you can flop on the couch for a while, they pretty much have tenant rights.
They're in, yeah.
Yeah, even with no pay. It's just, right. I mean, take that with a grain of salt. You need to look that up, but I remember it's pretty strict. Whereas Virginia, I don't know if but if you have it'd probably be good to have a lease frankly, so you have something clear for that bedroom. But wow, yeah, I mean, because just to put some numbers on it, I glanced on Redfin for whatever that's worth, and I was looking at some old condos, 1 or 2 bedroom, like 200,000. Newer ones were 450 even. Brand new ones were like 450, all for the same bedrooms and everything. And then, but it wasn't. I mean, you could get some decent looking townhouses, I thought, for between 3 and 4. Obviously, a lot older if it was like 350 or something. And so, if you can scrape together that money for the extra, and you can rent that other room out, it becomes at least as sustainable as buying your own condo, buying something where you're house hacking with hopefully a friend or somebody off wherever you find people like that, Craigslist or whatever. There must be a methodology of how to vet people so they don't murder you in your sleep. That'd be a good concern. I mean, I got to watch out for my wife doesn't murder me in my sleep, much less a housemaid.
I have a great idea. I think I should house hack with your son, Ed, once he gets his place. Derek and I could rent one of the rooms. We could sell our house, or we could just do that, how the kids come back and boomerang. But we just do that. We go and live with our kids and rent out a room.
Rent a room in their house.
Yeah,
get the kids to buy a house and you rent out a room in their house.
That's what I'm saying. That works out.
Pay them as much as they paid you growing up.
Yeah, junk it up.
Smoke pot all day. That kind
of stuff. Right. All of that. Do all of that. Give me the basement apartment at that.
Well, I was thinking about, though, as we were talking about, Sandra, about you, like in theory, you could kick out your renter in your, I guess it's a townhouse style or something, and live there and rent out your nicer house and make a lot, if you were pressed for cash or whatever, you have some flexibility to do that, assuming there's a difference in price.
There's a difference in price. And in DC, with the marijuana being legal, I was told that I could really rent out these rooms and kind of sell them as like, pot rooms and really make some,
hang on,
$500-$600 a night.
I'm actually a little bit unclear on what people do for $500 a night in a room.
They rent a room and they're able to come and just kind of camp out for the weekend and smoke pot all weekend in my room because it's legal,
So they're going to pay
for tourism.
Right. It's about tourism. Why wouldn't they just do what?
Why don't they just get like an Airbnb and like at $80 a night? Why are they going to spend $500 a night for
Because I'm going to make it like, a destination type of thing. It's going to be like nice,
I see.
Towels and, you get your
60s
assortment, 60s music, you get the whole experience. So people are willing to pay for that. And, not every Airbnb wants you to come and smoke pot in their house,
Okay, I'm just trying to get my head around what's going on.
Yeah, this is specifically for that.
I mean,
this is a new market.
That's a whole different thing. Yeah.
Right.
That's a different thing. Like, they're not going to just. These guys aren't just going to have one gummy and go to bed. There's a whole thing going on.
Well, but it does raise an interesting, again, I hadn't really ever thought of this house hacking for my son, but even I suppose in the right location, you could do an Airbnb with the other room, right? I mean, if it's a place where
that's beyond a house hack. That's something else.
That's desperation.
Yeah, you got an Airbnb in the room next to you. Wow.
Well, but it's. I mean, again, it's kind of sucks if you're a millennial. But if that's in terms of getting housing, it's great because you're not old like us and going to die soon. But to get your foot in the door, maybe that's what you do. The other thing I like though too with the house hacking is you say, well, what if I buy it for $400 and it falls to $350? Well, like you say, as long as you don't have to sell it. It's not relevant if you don't have to sell it. But the other thing is, if you've made sure that you can continue, like your job and whatever else, you can continue to afford it, and you're not in a distress situation. So by renting it, let's say your rent and your salary means you easily clear the payment. Well, so what if it goes down in value to $350? Like you say, you just hold on to it. And it reminds me, when I was starting out, I was fortunate enough to, although actually I had some help with a down payment, but to get the house, but there were all those teaser rates back when I was getting this, and I always got 30-year mortgages. And my theory was, with all these arms and everything else. Well, I don't know what's going to happen with that, but this 30-year mortgage, I can definitely pay this, unless I'm fired and thrown out in the street for 6 months. I have some backup money. And then I ended up refinancing it umpty times. I would have been better with an arm because the rates would have gone lower, but I didn't know. If I could go back and do it again, heck yeah, I would have gotten the arm. But I was worried, having grown up in a higher rate environment. I think it was 7% was my first mortgage in 94. And I was excited to get that rate. I think my law school loans were like 15%, something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those are some big numbers.
You'd be a great client for Clear Sky Financial.
Hey, Ed, would you like to refinance some of your law school loans with us?
Yo, man, I'm glad those are gone.
Oh, too bad.
Well, talk about, this is broader than real estate, but talk about hacking. But every day I got an extra dollar I didn't need. I sent it to the law school loan people because I figured I was getting a 15% rate of return on every dollar I sent them. It's kind of like high rate credit cards. It's the same thing. And it felt great because my monthly required payment kept going down a little bit extra because again, not everybody's in that situation. And I don't blame millennials for, everybody, they eat avocado toast too much. I mean, come on, people got to live. But I think people are pretty responsible with their money, millennials and otherwise. But yeah, anything you can do, that's sort of the financial hacking is broader than the house hacking. Yeah, I like that.
That's a good segment.
Yeah.
Covered what you should do as a millennial in the housing market. It's buy a house and rent it out. Rent it to your friends with you in it. And then maybe think about having this if you're in the cities, think about having a destination home.
Yep.
Yeah.
Think
and
about
maybe
your parents. Let them, retire and move into your place part-time.
At a high fee. And the thing is, if you don't, unlike Mitt Romney, you don't have family members who can just give you a $50,000 down payment or whatever. You can live at home for a year or two, or house hack the other way, right? You can go, maybe a friend has a place or an older person that and you can rent, their crappy room at the lowest possible amount of money so that you can save up money for that down payment. And just be careful of all those fake loans. The other quick thing I would say is, I'm the type, I would think, I'll wait for the crash because we all lived on this video through the '07 crash. But there's a lot of good arguments that things are different now, that they didn't overbuild. In fact, that they've underbuilt since 2007 because of that crash. So maybe there won't be, it'll probably be a correction. There always is, or things will slow down. But there's at least a chance it's not going to fall 20% or 30% like it did before. So there's even less reason to, wait too long.
The short term, there is going to be a pretty good sized price increase. As long as these interest rates stay low, man, it's going to be a feeding frenzy worse than last year from a inventory standpoint. And so we think prices are going to go up, especially on the entry level, mid-level properties, 10%. In the next 6 months because there's just not enough product, too many buyers. And, you're going to see 20, 30 contracts on a single house. I feel really bad for the borrowers right now, unless, interest rates get jacked up, if they get jacked up in a short period of time, which I don't see that happening. I think they're just going to gradually go up. But the moratorium hasn't really kicked in yet from a foreclosure standpoint, from a tenant standpoint. And so, man, it's really nuts out there. And we're only into, as we tape it, we're in the middle to late stages of January. So I see price increases another 10%. Then the market might correct from that increase of 10% down. Who knows? But we don't see it.
It's certainly not enough to just be crossing your fingers and waiting for some massive change one way or the other. If you need a place to live, you can house hack or make something else happen, and it's stable. You think that you can swing this, if there's some switches, or you're not in a job where you might move in a year. I mean, it's nothing wrong with renting. Sometimes renting is the right thing to do because you have your first job, and you might live around here in DC, but one of the competitors is in California, and maybe that's where you'll go. If there's a significant, maybe you don't want to buy that house and have to deal with it unless you have somebody who can help rent it out when you're gone, blah, blah, blah. It gets more complicated. I'm very cautious. I like to make sure I can cover my stuff. I don't want to, man.
Yeah, you don't want to stretch.
I saw too many sad stories in 2007. I mean, one of my renters to this day, just a wonderful, wonderful person. And she bought absolutely at the top of the market with a townhouse, teaser rate, a little trouble with her job, lost her property. And she's been wonderful lady, hardworking lady, and just hasn't been able to go back and buy another place again. And she's so gun shy after that. She's just happy, renting. So, but yeah, I don't see that quite as bad. And that was a situation where, unfortunately, she pushed too high. It wasn't stable enough, in case something bad happened. So, well, maybe next time we could talk about what does an investor do? Because here we're talking about what does a millennial do? And maybe it's not a whole lot different if you think you can rent it out. But I don't know. Maybe you got to put your money on the sidelines.
Well, that's another day. And like us, we'll see you again. Looking forward to the next one. We'll talk about investors in the marketplace today.
And if you subscribe, it should auto download our next one.
Thank you.